Well, today I'm going to be talking about a new original pasta, and this one came from a really close friend. It was interesting to see how far someone can go with schizophrenia while mixing a supernatural element into the mix. Also, I like how the jerk-ass stepfather from the beginning is killed by the very thing that tormented the protagonist throughout the story. It's very satisfying to see revenge on a character who deserves it, unlike another story that I won't even bother giving out the name to. What I was curious was that what happens to TJ at the end, who is the main protagonist? Long story short, he dies. But then what's with the monster then? Is it Red? Or is it TJ, now in control of the other roaches? Speaking of Red, does this name sound familiar to anyone else? Given that this was her first pasta, it was a lot better than I expected it to be, given that most of our first times aren't usually that good. Wait, did I just make it funny? TJ sat down on the bare, dingy mattress that is his bed, with his head hung down, laying down his long, messy black hair obscure his pale and bruised face. He gazed up at the fraying walls of his room, adorned with crayon scribblings, torn wallpaper, punching holes from fits of rage, and smeared defecation. His sullen blue eyes stayed focused on a drawing he made on the wall with red and black crayon. A tall, malevolent, humanoid figure with dark red rind flesh, razor-like black nails, gaping black eye sockets, and decaying sharp teeth. The figure, named Red, has been a haunting enigma of TJ's early life, scarring his childhood. TJ could easily picture memories of himself as a small child, trembling under the covers of his bed, hiding from the monster that would always hunch over his body, smiling maliciously down at him, its breath rancid with rotting flesh. Just thinking about the monster makes him cringe, even after more than a decade later. It never occurred to him why Red is after him, but he knows that one thing is for certain. It wants him. But for what purpose? Whatever it may be, he knew damn well that it was something sinister, maybe even unspeakable. Waking up from an evening nap and only wearing a pair of boxers, TJ stood up and gazed off into the distance, away from the drawing of Red. "Are you guys there?" he muttered to himself, waiting for a reply from his only companions.
"Yes, we are. We are always here for you,"
a voice spoke back in a calming manner.
"Mr. Edgar and Wallace has always been here for you, ever since the very beginning, when you were very young."
"Thank you, Milton. Knowing that makes me feel safe." TJ smiled, rummaging around his cluttered room for a shirt and pants to put on. He found a black and white striped t-shirt and a pair of torn blue jeans and put the clothes on. After doing so, he put on a pair of black boots and began to make his way out of his room.
"Wait!"
Another voice emerged. TJ could tell by the tone that it was Wallace's.
"Be careful. The roaches could be out,"
he warned. Got it, TJ stuttered, grimacing at the thought of finding a huge crimson-red roach at his feet. He thought of the last time he got cornered by a pack of them, trying to close in on him. He was able to seek out safety by hiding in his closet, but ended up spending the whole night painstakingly waiting for the roaches to vanish. He recalled waking up the next morning with them gone, but also was a warm moisture settled in the crotch of his pants. Running out of the closet to go to the bathroom wasn't even viable for him while waiting for the carnivorous bugs to go away. TJ theorized that from past experiences that these are no ordinary cockroaches that people find in places such as a cheap motel or in a very messy house. These are cockroaches that seem unworldly. One time when he found one of these roaches, he panicked, trying to step on it with his shoe, but it did nothing. To his horror, he found that these roaches have an indestructible shell that's very hard to break. He feared that not even fire could kill them, seeing how rock hard the coating is. He would have experimented with it to test his theory, but he knew in the back of his mind that that would be plain foolishness. TJ stepped out of his bedroom and began to make his way downstairs to the kitchen. Suddenly, he found something out of the corner of his eye. Something very unpleasant and repulsive to his eyes. A huge, bulging, burnt red cockroach hissing loudly. TJ screamed, his eyes wide with dismay.
Kill it!
A distant voice exclaimed.
Crush it, quick!
It's huge! It's huge! I can't, Edgar. I can't! TJ backed himself into the corner of the hall, his breathing becoming short, rapid huffs. The cockroach, still hissing, crawled its way towards TJ. So small, yet so menacing all at once. TJ turned, finding a cinder block at the other end of the room, right next to the bathroom door. Shaking, he quickly got up, still eyeing the bug, as he reached for his weapon of choice. Like lightning, he picked it up and slammed it right down on it, its whole body making a loud crunch noise being crushed under the cinder block. He lifted up the cinder block, finding the smashed black and red remains of the fallen cockroach oozing off the flat surface. Dropping the block, it fell, making an even louder thud than before, echoing throughout the whole house.
It's best if you leave now. The roaches may be here to affect us all.
Egner exclaimed.
Yes, you have to leave, just to be safe.
Milton joined in.
Do it! Leave this place! Edgar and Milton are right!
Wallace said. What? TJ furrowed his brows in disbelief. That can't be. They can't.
TJ, will you knock that shit off? I'm trying to watch my goddamn show!
An angry voice erupted from downstairs. It was the voice of Otis, TJ's stepfather, who's very likely to be drunk off several rounds of hard liquor.
Get your ass down here and get me another beer!
Oh dear, not again.
Milton sighed.
He's a very unpleasant man.
Just gotta deal with it. For now. TJ sneered, disgusted that he and his mother had to share a home with a scumbag like Otis. In TJ's eyes, Otis is nothing more than a vile leech, sucking TJ's mother dry of all of her money, wasting it all on drugs and alcohol, just like he wastes all the money he gets from the government, faking disability. TJ made his way downstairs and into the kitchen, grabbing a glass bottle of beer from the refrigerator. Without warning, TJ slipped and fell, dropping the beer. The glass shattered, its contents soaking the wooden floor.
TJ Dolan, are you some kind of fucking idiot?
Otis stood up from the recliner, his face red with rage. He stormed over to TJ, grabbing him by his hair and jerking his head against Otis's tomato-red face. He raised a clenched fist, ready to knock the life out of him. TJ wrenched, fearing what's yet to come. "Let him go, Otis!" TJ's mother Angus yelled. "Just give him a break and go get a beer yourself!" TJ looked over at his mother, seeing her powerless, yet fearful. He knew that if Otis were to take his anger out on him, that there would be nothing his mother would be able to do to stop him.
Fine.
Otis dropped TJ, nearly hitting his head on the shattered glass. Otis stomped over to the kitchen, leaving TJ alone with the mess. I'm sorry, Otis. I didn't mean to.
Just shut up, okay? Get out of my sight, you freak show. Make yourself useful and clean up this mess.
TJ got up, his scrawny body trembling with fear. He walked down the hall and made his way down to the basement to get a mop and bucket of soapy water. He slowly tiptoed down the stairs, searching for the light switch. TJ's heart began to race, not being very fond of places as dark as the basement in this house. When he got to the bottom of the stairs, he felt around for the switch, soon finding it and turning it on. He quickly walked over to the utility closet next to the washing machine and dryer, waiting to get upstairs and out of the anonymous dark basement. Before TJ opened the door to get the bucket, soap, and mop, he stopped dead in his tracks. His hand began to shake uncontrollably as his pulse heightened even more. He knew he couldn't be down here for long, as he had to get back upstairs to clean the beer and shattered glass, and quick before Otis tried threatening him again. He knew he didn't want to be beaten up by Otis. Not again. Not today. "They're not here. They're not here," TJ repeated to himself. "They're not here. They're not here. Just grab the stuff and run. TJ slowly turned the rusty knob of the closet, and then slung the door wide open. What he saw made him jump back, nearly falling over a swarm of adult roaches, nesting in the small closet, hissing loudly and nearly consuming every corner. TJ screamed, running like hell away from the roaches that began chasing after him in innumerable amounts.
Run, TJ!
Milton yelled.
Don't you dare look back! You need to get out of this place and fast!
TJ ran up the stairs, nearly tripping over one of the rungs. He quickly lost the swarm, leaving the basement and slamming the door shut. With his back against the door, TJ slowly regained his breath, profusely swaying and shaking from what he had just saw.
What the hell is going on?
Otis angrily asked, his voice again erupting.
Get your ass over here and clean this shit up!
TJ ran to the living room to explain to his mom and Otis what he saw in the basement, only to find something just as gruesome. His mom and Otis were covered to every corner with even more of the roaches, making themselves at home to the shiftless bodies. Both of their skin were rotting, being consumed by the bugs that gnawed the flesh. Both of their eyes were missing from the sockets where more of the roaches crawled in. TJ stood frozen with fear, feeling close to fainting.
What gives you, loser? Don't just stand there!
Otis yelled, completely oblivious to what was taking place. Oh, be quiet, Otis. Just leave him alone, Angus replied, focused on the television. TJ became nearly dumbfounded by what was unfolding in front of his eyes. They clearly didn't know what was really happening to them. Mom, Otis, get out of there! The roaches, they...
What the hell are you talking about? God, you're so delusional!
Otis sneered.
TJ, it's too late for them.
Wallace said.
Red's coming back. He's out to get you. You need to leave this place quick. He's right. You need to hide somewhere safe. Get out, or I'll be done for.
Egner exclaimed. TJ turned around the front door, not even looking back at the fallen victims of the roaches. He just ran down his eyes, knowing that he must leave his mother behind in order to escape. He could care less about Otis. He could rock for all he cared.
We all hope you're happy now.
Egner sneered.
You fool! You should have listened to us sooner.
As he ran down the sidewalk away from his house, he could hear the sound of the roaches regrouping and chasing after the next victim. He ran even faster, as if running a marathon. He dared not to look back at the predators, nor even think of the one that sent them out. He knew where he had to go. His older sister's apartment home. The home of the one and only person he could reach out to. Thankfully, it's close to his house, just a few or so blocks away in downtown Newark. TJ still ran like hell, gradually becoming more and more fatigued. He gasped for air as he ran, not even stopping for a split second. Before he knew it, he was entering his sister's apartment complex. He was almost stunned by how fast he actually ran to his place of safety, away from the enemy.
They're getting close!
Egner yelled.
Don't you dare stop!
TJ entered the building and ran down the dim hallway, gasping for sustainable breaths of air. He stumbled to the hardwood floor, tripping over the shoelaces of his clunky boots. He quickly got back up, his legs wobbling like jello. He briefly looked back, only finding the abyss of the darkened hallway behind him. His eyes, still widened with dismay, scanned the vicinity for his designed place of refuge.
Keep running!
Milton yelled.
That's still right on your tail!
TJ quickened his pace and held on to his throbbing chest. He darted up a flight of stairs and onto the next floor. Every door along with its room numbers was obscured by the darkness of the ill-lit building. Where the hell is it? TJ stuttered. Why the hell can't I find it? Within the ominous silence of the apartment, TJ began to hear a very familiar yet alarming sound. Soft, low stretching and hissing.
Run, TJ!
Milton yelled again.
They're getting close!
I'm trying, Milton! TJ nearly fallen to the floor again. TJ hurried from door to door in a desperate attempt to seek out the right room number. His labored and tired breaths turned to malicious huffs of panic. Where's 238? 238! 82! 23! 82! 82! 83! There it is! TJ rushed over to the splintered door with the correct numbers nailed to it and began to pound on it with his sweat-drenched hands. He looked down the hallway, seeing hundreds of the large, dark, burnt red roaches crawling towards him like an army of ants closing in on abandoned food. "Rachel!" TJ yelled. "Rachel, open this door, please!" He plunged in the door continuously with both hands, which started to bleed from the parts of the wood that had lodged into his skin. "Rachel!" The door swung open, and TJ rushed into the apartment room without even glancing at Rachel. He snatched the rusty doorknob out of her hands and slammed the door, followed by locking it shut. He then turned around to face Rachel. Her jaw nearly dropped to the ground. "What on earth is going on?" she asked. "And what happened to you? You look like you just ran a marathon before you got here. What did you do to your hands?" "This is no time for introductions! This is an emergency!" TJ stormed past Rachel and into the small living room, leaving dirty tracks on the dingy red carpet. He shut the blinds of the only two windows within the room, blocking sight of the outside world from him and Rachel. Whoa, hold on. Rachel stood in TJ's path. "Settle down, bro. Let's talk about this." "There's no time to talk, Rachel. It's life or death." TJ pushed past Rachel. Pacing frantically in loops and lines and circles, he clamped both of his shaking and splintered hands onto his head and tugged at his long, messy, dark hair. His face held the expression of someone who just witnessed a brutal murder. But Rachel's was that of someone who just came across a stranger playing cards with a wooden spoon. "TJ, wait a minute." "Don't tell me wait a minute, Rachel! I can't wait a minute!" TJ howled hysterically. His voice became high and shrill, like a child's. He pulled at his hair, nearly ripping it out in clumps. They're right outside the door! They got Mom, they got Otis, and now they're trying to get me! I can't wait a minute, or an hour, or half an hour, or a second! I can't! TJ. Rachel grabbed onto TJ's shoulders. Her eyes locked onto his. TJ stopped dead in his tracks, with his obnoxious huffs being the only sound filling the void of silence within the claustrophobically small room. "Just calm down. You're gonna be alright. Let's just sit down, okay?" Rachel smiled nervously, but her touch felt tender on TJ's limp and stiffened shoulders. Okay, TJ muttered, the childish voice gone. "Let's go." Silently, both TJ and Rachel walked back to the living room and sat down on an old leathery green sofa that looked like it was safe from the town dumpster. TJ examined the piece carefully, where his older sister had recently moved to. Cardboard boxes filled every corner of the apartment. Across from TJ and Rachel stood an old television set sitting on an end table. The walls were adorned with peeling blue paint and a few picture frames that tilted crookedly. One of them caught TJ's eye. A picture of a younger, short-haired, and innocent TJ. He couldn't remember exactly how old he looked in the photo, but he was certain he looked no older than 7. The young TJ in the photo smiled brightly, his eyes gleaming with carefree joy.
That was you a long time ago. Look at you now.
"Egner?" TJ whispered under his breath. "What happened?" Rachel asked, facing TJ. "What was that all about with you barging in here like that?" You don't know what happened, do you?" TJ's voice elevated suddenly. "Mom and Otis, they're dead." "Wait, what?" Rachel's brows furrowed. "What are you talking about?" "Red," TJ exclaimed. "His roaches got him. I know it because I saw their faces. Oh god, the faces looked awful. They were both swollen and bleeding and rotting, and their eyes were missing from the sockets." TJ rocked back and forth in the chair, his feet kicking and drumming on the floor. Rachel sprang into action and tried to contain him. "TJ, calm down." "I knew I had to run," TJ interrupted, the childish voice returned. "I had to run because it was too late for them. I had to get out because I knew they were going to kill me next. I knew I should have listened to Milton, Egner, and Wallace, but I didn't. They warned me, Rachel. They warned me. They..." "Wait!" Rachel yelled, pinning TJ to the couch. Settle down, okay? She sat back down on the sofa. TJ nodded, letting himself sink into it. He gazed up at the ceiling, which had a series of jagged cracks engraved into it. Looking up at the ceiling, he began to pound his clenched fist against his head. He never knew why he always did this to himself. He thought that maybe it was a way of coping with stress, despite it being unhealthy. Please don't do that, TJ. You'll hurt yourself. Rachel grabbed TJ's arm and firmly held it down. Van began to rub his throbbing head. Are the voices talking to you again? Rachel asked softly. TJ nodded his head again. They are, he said. They are all mad at me because I didn't heed their warning. If only I had listened to them, none of this would have happened. He sighed remorsefully. And I think I really know why you moved away from home. You had to get out of here, so you wouldn't end up like Mom and Otis. TJ paused. Or you just couldn't stand living with us anymore. I don't blame you, really. But I guess you're stuck with me now. He smiled a brief rubbery grin and chuckled shakily. Witnessing it nearly made Rachel's nerves snap off like dying twigs. No, that's not it at all, Rachel replied, knowing to herself that she's lying. She closed her eyes and sighed, as if preparing herself for a speech in front of a big audience. Now I know you can hear the voices. I know you can see and hear certain things that I can't. I believe you do. But I want you to try and listen to my voice, TJ. Okay? TJ glanced over at Rachel. What about Red? What about the roaches? You can't see them? No, I can't. But I believe that you can see them. And I want you to know that Mom and Otis are fine. They're not hurt, and nobody wants to hurt you, TJ. No one's out to get you. You'll be alright. You sure? TJ started. Yes, I'm sure, Rachel smiled. Now you just settle down, watch some TV, okay? She stood up and grabbed the TV remote from the coffee table across from the sofa. She turned on the television, which displayed a man showing tonight's weather forecast. I'll be in the kitchen, alright? Rachel walked out of the living room and down the hall. TJ sat silently as he watched the man on the TV screen. Then, he sat up and looked at the front door right next to him. He got up and tiptoed to it, constantly peering back at Rachel without trying to make a sound. When she vanished from his sight, he slowly pressed his ear to the door, hearing the sound of the lodge bugs lightly scratching against its frame door. He shuddered, reluctantly peeping one of his eyes in the door's peek hole, finding the egg-shaped bugs mounted up against it in a giant pile. He looked down the hallway, finding nothing but more of them covering each inch of the floor. Cringing in fear and disgust, he rushed back to the couch and curled up in fetal position on the side, away from the sealed front door. He then glanced over at a stacked pile of textbooks that likely came from either the library or Rachel's college. He scanned the titles one by one. The Basics of Psychiatry, Psychiatry for Scholars, Coping with Mental Disorders, Understanding Schizophrenia. TJ grimaced, pulling back the urge to rip out the books apart and use them as firewood. He picked up the remote and changed the channel over to a music station. On the screen displayed a live performance of a woman singing some opera song. The captions on the bottom corner read, O Molo Babalo Carlo, performed by Kiri Taikanwa, originally composed by Giacomo Panuzzi. TJ blankly stared at the TV screen, barely paying attention to the performer. Rachel walked into the kitchen and looked out the window next to the refrigerator. The sky had turned dark and glum, with only the city lights below it glowing shades of red, green, blue, yellow, and white. She turned to the refrigerator door and found a sticky note with Dr. Hugh's number written on it in pen. She picked up the telephone hanging on the wall and put it to her ear, but huffed in frustration when she was greeted with the sound of a busy line. Damn it, she uttered, putting the wired phone back in its cradle. She ran a nervous hand through her red hair. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Light droplets of rain tapped on the window, followed by a soft roll of thunder within the dark clouds off in the distance. Across the hall in the living room, TJ leaned to the side where he could see Rachel pacing back and forth in the small kitchen.
I'd be wary of her if I were you,
Wallace said.
This isn't the safest place to be. Don't you agree, Milton?
Oh, yes.
Middleton replied approvingly.
You shouldn't be here with her, TJ. She could be trying to set you up in a trap. She's peacing because she's evaluating how she's gonna let your guard down.
You know what? You're right.
Egner declared.
She's working against you, TJ. She could possibly be an ally of Red.
No, this can't be true, TJ replied defensively, losing focus on the TV. What if I told you guys about jumping to conclusions?
She's got you cornered. You can't go back out because the roaches are still outside. You gotta make an escape plan, or you're done, son.
Maybe he's just misunderstood, Milton.
Wallace suggested.
It's shocking that people can be so deceiving to one another, especially siblings.
Shut up, TJ said through clenched teeth. All of you just shut up! TJ turned back to the TV and changed the channel back to the weather forecast as soon as the video of the opera singer ended. On the screen, the weatherman, in a gray suit, continued to talk about the whole week's upcoming rainy days. And as for Friday, we're supposed to... The man on the screen suddenly stopped, his eyes nearly bulging out of the sockets. He turned to TJ, looking mortified. What are you doing, TJ? He asked. What are you just sitting there? You need to get out of here, or you're done for. What? TJ stood up, feeling the hairs on his neck rise. Why? The voices! They've been telling the truth! Rachel is out to get you! She's been deceiving you this whole time! The man abruptly fell to the floor, covering his face with both his hands, and began to let out a series of muffled, blood-curdling screams of agony. TJ covered his ears, trying to block out the deafening cries. The man let go of his face and looked directly at TJ. His eyes had been replaced with two giant gaping holes. His skin, previously a light cream color, had turned to a burnt reddish black and began to rot like decomposing roadkill. The dying flesh started to fall from his face in large pieces along with clumps of the man's blood-caked hair. The thing that was no longer the weatherman ran at TJ, who stood motionless and dismayed by what was unfolding right in front of him. He cupped both of his hands over his mouth in horror. The thing on the screen's grin stretched from ear to decaying ear as he cackled an inhuman and garbled and distorted laugh. TJ rushed over to the television set and slammed the power button off. All that was facing him now was a black screen and an obscure reflection of himself. Oh my god, he uttered through chattering teeth. Red.
We told you so.
All the voices yelled in unison.
We told you so. We told you so. We told you so. We...
Shut up! TJ cried, covering his ears again. He then began to pound at his head, slapping and hitting it in a blind attempt to make the voices stop. Just go away! TJ got up and dashed down the hallway and into the kitchen, finding Rachel on the phone. The minute she saw him, she nearly gasped. Hold on, she said, setting the phone away from her ear and covering it over her hand.
TJ, are you alright?
TJ stood silent, dumbfounded. Who's on the phone? He asked.
Who do you think it is, TJ? The Queen of England? Wake up, stupid! It's Red!
Ignar sneered.
This is what we've been trying to tell you all along!
It's no one, TJ. Now please leave me alone for a minute. I'm busy. Who are you talking to? Tell me the truth! TJ yelled. I'm serious, TJ. Rachel's face turned red. Please don't interrupt me while I'm on the phone. Just go back into the living room, okay?
TJ, I know you're there.
A choked, murky voice from the phone called.
I know where you're at. I can see you. But can you see me?
The voice taunted, laying out a death rattle of a laugh. All the blood had drained from TJ's face as his eyes grew wide with utter shock. TJ, it's not what it looks like, Rachel sighed in stifled frustration. I'm not trying to do anything to you. Dr. Hughes is on the phone, and he wants to talk to you. I promise you'll be fine. Bullshit! TJ spat, grabbing the phone's cord. He yanked it hard like pulling on a horse's reins, and snaked it right off the phone's cradle. They were right the whole time! You were working for Red! He pointed an accusing finger at his confused and devastated culprit. What the hell was that for? Rachel revolted, her patience with TJ vanishing. I'm not working against you, TJ. I'm trying to help you. Those voices in your head are feeding you lies. Don't listen to them. Why should I not listen to them? They're the ones who are right, not you! Not you! TJ stormed out of the kitchen, his voice yet again returning to the childlike tone. Not you! Not you! Not you! He screamed. He staggered in his own aimless path and fell flat on his face, his words becoming more incomprehensible as he bellowed in pain. Rachel rushed to TJ and kneeled down to tend to him, but he only resisted, pushing her away. Get off of me! He yelled. Just go away and leave me alone! TJ continued to hit his head, not caring about the wounds he might inflict on himself. Rachel, ignoring TJ's words, wrapped her arms around him and began to walk back and forth like a mother soothing her crying baby to sleep. TJ pushed and shoved and squirmed relentlessly, but he stayed tight in Rachel's emotional embrace. He kicked and quivered as he continued to yell at disorganized and rambling phrases. Shh, Rachel said softly, stroking TJ's tangled hair. Within minutes, TJ's body grew limp, becoming tired and weak. He inhaled and exhaled in exhaustion. It's okay, TJ. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm only here to help, Rachel whispered. TJ glanced up at the blue wall, looking at one of the picture frames hanging on it, both perhaps a year younger, smiling as they stood in front of a beach in Ocean City, Maryland. Hanging next to it was a photo of the younger TJ, still smiling a fearless, baby-toothed and youthful smile. TJ caved in, accepting her embrace and hugging her helplessly. He welcomed the tears that began to soak up his eyes. I'm sorry, Rachel, he sniffled. I'm sorry if I hurt you. I'm an idiot and a monster. I'm sorry that I grew up to be like this. No, you're not, Rachel replied. You're not an idiot and you're not a monster. You just need help. I know the voices are telling you that I'm trying to hurt you, but I'm not. Think of all the times I've helped you and been there for you. Every trip to Dr. Hughes, every hospital stay, every return home. I would never hurt you, TJ. I'm trying to help you because you're my baby brother, and I love you very much. I love you too, TJ said, hugging Rachel tighter. He looked down, breathing in the scent of her cheap perfume. His eyes became filled with self-conscious doubt. But Rachel, would you really have the audacity to care for someone like me? Hearing no response from his sister, he felt a warm moisture against his cheek. He looked at Rachel, finding two crater-like holes that have replaced her eyes, as well as the same rotting dead red skin falling off like the Redder Man. TJ screamed, backing away from what used to be Rachel. It crawled on all fours like a quad-limbed spider, then it leaped off the ground, becoming a blur of black and red. It tackled TJ, pinning him to the floor.
TJ, TJ, TJ.
It screeched in its raspy voice. TJ raved and flailed his arms aimlessly within the thing's tight grip until his right hand came into contact with something hard and stone-like. Looking away from what was breathing in his face, he grabbed his unknown weapon of choice and bashed it right into Ed's face, making a noise of shattering bone and squishing brain matter. Warm, thick fluid splattered onto TJ's face. He felt the heaviness of the attacker's body collapse onto him. He gasped, pulling it away from him and onto the floor, finding Red's face vanished and replaced with the body's correct owner. Half of her face had been caved in from the impact of the blow to the head, making it look like a half-deflated basketball. Oh my god! TJ cried through cupped hands. Rachel! Wake up! Wake up! He shook Rachel's body, her head wobbling back and forth. Her large hazel eyes, all wide and shining like the ones of a mounted deer, gazed back at him, accusing him. Rachel! TJ screamed, holding Rachel's bleeding corpse tightly to his chest. He trembled uncontrollably as hot tears ran down his cheeks, smearing the blood that painted on his pale face. Beside him stood the object he used to kill Rachel with, a large white statue of a young praying angel boy, smothered in blood. Rachel, 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 Rachel! TJ continued to weep uncontrollably on his fallen sister's body, letting his body be smothered in her warm blood. He held onto her tight, shaking like an abandoned puppy. Milton, Egnor, Wallace, where are you guys? Please don't leave me like this! Please, it's not her fault, it's not her fault! TJ wailed, alone with Rachel's corpse. In the distance, he could hear the ominous laughter of Red's return, still loud and choked on rotting flesh. Fuck you! TJ screamed, his eyes brimming with rage. Just fuck off! Leave us alone! With that, the laughter stopped. TJ stood there, his face still raw with tears. On the other side of the front door, he could still hear the roaches still scurrying. They still have never left. They're never gonna leave, are they? TJ asked himself, but heard no reply. I see. They've all abandoned me. They've left me here to rot. Not that I blamed them. TJ jumped when he heard a sudden loud noise erupt within the room. The TV had come back on, displaying the same woman from the music channel performing the same song from earlier, O Milo Babino Call, and it was much louder than before, as if someone cranked up the volume to its maximum level. Perplexed yet frightened, TJ rushed over to the TV to turn it off, but when he pushed the power button, nothing happened. The TV remained on, still playing that song loud and obnoxiously. He kept pressing it, his fingers soon becoming sore, but it did nothing. The song became louder and louder, soon becoming unbearable to TJ's ears. Stop it! Why won't you stop? He yelled, his hands clamped over his ears. The song continued to play, still gradually getting louder and louder, slowly but surely. As it did, the footage of the singing woman on the screen began to warp, twisting and turning until it was nothing more than a horrid blob of distortion. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! TJ screamed, uncovering his ears and running to the TV. He whipped the power cord from the wall, tightly clutching it in his hand. Nothing had changed. The TV stayed on, still loud and grotesque and unbearable. TJ snapped, his eyes becoming wide with utter madness. He yelled at the top of his lungs as he grabbed the TV, lifting it despite its fairly heavy weight. He whipped the shades of the window open and shook the TV out, smashing the glass instantaneously. It fell to the floor, crashing to pieces the moment it hit the concrete floor. With that, the music vanished. TJ panicked, looking down at her. He chuckled to himself, his laugh gradually becoming louder and louder. Before he knew it, he was laughing like a madman, despite all that had just happened. He stopped, his head hung down. He shut his eyes, then opened them back up. I know what I have to do. I have to kill the monster. TJ stood up, slowly walking to the kitchen. He opened up one of the drawers below the cupboards and pulled out a sharp kitchen knife. Holding it tightly with one of his hands, he walked back to the living room to Rachel's corpse. He stood above her, his hand shaking as he held the knife. Tears rolled down his face, laying on Rachel's face. The monsters that we fear are the ones that we are. Madness is a monster that lives within us, consuming us whole, TJ whispered to himself. I am so sorry, Rachel. I don't know how you could ever forgive me for the monster I am. TJ shut his eyes tight, grabbing the knife with both his hands and holding it over his chest. He deeply pierced his chest. The blade went straight through his heart. Blood poured from his mouth and chest. TJ fell to the floor over Rachel's body. He trembled, dropping the knife as he breathed heavily. Within seconds, TJ's consciousness began to fade. As his life started to slip away, he could hear Red's laughter echo in his mind, taunting his fallen prey. Otis sat down on the frame recliner, gulping down yet another beer. All night, he had been savoring the moment that he has the whole house to himself. No TJ or Angus tonight. He had no idea where TJ had went off to, but he knew that Angus would soon be back from running her late-night errands with a friend.
Damn.
He uttered to himself when he saw that his show had cut to a commercial break.
Gotta get another beer.
Otis stood up from the recliner and walked to the kitchen to get more of his poison of choice. He grabbed a cold beer from the refrigerator and began to make his way back to the living room. Suddenly, all the lights in the house went out, along with the TV.
Shit!
Otis jumped, nearly dropping his beer.
What in the hell? It's not even storming out!
Otis set down his beer and made his way back to the kitchen. Pulling a flashlight out of the drawer, he went downstairs to the basement to check the panel for any blown fuses. He lit the flashlight on it, inspecting the panel. Before he could diagnose what had happened to the house's electricity, he turned around, hearing a faint scratching noise out in the distance.
Must be mice.
Otis said to himself. He continued to work on the panel until he heard another noise. One that stunned him. It was coming from the old radio next to the washing machine and dryer. It was playing an opera song. Old Mile Up a Mile Carl, loudly.
Jesus!
Otis yelled. He ran over to the radio to shut it off, but the song kept playing, despite Otis repeatedly hitting the off button. Frustrated, he yanked out the power cord, but it did nothing.
What the hell's going on?
Otis said to himself, starting to shake. As he continued to inspect the radio, he was greeted with the sound of heavy breathing down his neck, blended with the stench of rotting flesh. He turned around, shining his flashlight at the source of the noise, only to find a tall, humanoid figure with decaying red and black flesh, razor-sharp teeth and nails, soulless blue eyes, and long black hair that hung over the enigma's rotting face. It smiled, revealing its bloody fangs.
Hello, Otis.
It croaked. Otis screamed, dropping his flashlight.
TJ, what in the fuck?
The humanoid's grin grew even wrier as he closed in on Otis, eyeing him. Behind the humanoid, a giant army of red roaches grouped around it, ready to feast on the next meal. Otis let out a blood-curdling scream, being ripped apart by the humanoid and devoured by the roaches. TJ Dolan, are you some kind of fucking idiot? I love doing these lines. Man, this is gonna take forever. I didn't realize how long Korean's story was. It's still going.